Hey guys, welcome home to You Are the Compass. From wherever in the world you find yourself listening to this, no matter the time zones or oceans that divide us physically, this is a space in which you'll be connected to a community, a collection of thoughts and individual views that may just help you down the many of life's paths that you have the option to take. Today, I invite you to join me as I chat with our guest, originally from Belgium and now living in Canada, Louis. We are openly discussing open relationships and how, with all our boundaries we set in our life, all the fears we overcome to move forward, at the end of the day, can you really honestly connect with just one person on all levels in life?
This week's New York Magazine gives readers a guide to polyamory or being in an open relationship. They spoke with about 40 people currently engaging in so-called ethical non-monogamy. Some of these folks have been married for years, and the people wanted to find out how they navigate being in a relationship with more than one person. More than one person. And then I'm supposed to ask you all, would you be open to this? No. How many are we talking about? Not y'all. Pull it off. I mean, Jackson's boob popped out, and the country was supposed to go to bed. Then, how many orgasms can one girl fake? Well, women and men, but when you read that ethical non-monogamy, weren't you sitting there going, a man definitely decided? 100%. Not to be monogamous, but it's a good ethical. Yeah. No, I can barely handle one. I can't. Like I know these people are more evolved than I am. I'm more cave woman in my relationships. Like you are mine. Like that's more me. But what I don't understand is like, some of these people are married, have children, and have jobs. Busy. How do you have the time to do that with, let alone one man, several men or women? Like they are not only more evolved than I am, they have more energy. Well, maybe to get the energy they need to do those things because life is draining and we have time for date night. But personally, to me, like, why not just be single? And maybe that's a lack of my understanding. But if you're saying I care about this person, but I also want to sleep with a lot of other people, why would? Well, because there's more to marriage than sex, obviously. In fact, where's the sex these days? You know what I mean? It's mostly cleaning the house, visiting in-laws, yes, balancing the budget. Always dynamics in a relationship. It is my belief that there is no way one of the two partners in a polyamorous relationship isn't actually jealous that the other one's sleeping with someone else. They're pretending they know they have to do it to keep the relationship alive. I just don't think humans are wired that way. Than we are. I don't think so. Sometimes I think about I would be too jealous to let. I have no energy. I'm not going anywhere. I am not leaving. But I think as my mom hat and my wife hat sometimes struggle under the same roof because there's nothing sexual for me about being a mom. And I need to be sexual to be a wife. And sometimes like changing hats while you hear everything, it's really hard for me. So parts of me wish at times I didn't have to know, but maybe someone could help me to. Listen, if you can do more than one thing at a time, you can have a polyamorous relationship. Okay? If you can chew gum and walk, you can do more.
Interesting stuff. So, Louis, let's get the foundation. Your story. Did you have the watershed moment that some of us have, like the sudden realization that you weren't heading in the right direction whilst on the traditional insert air quotes life path? Or did you make small decisions over time which has led you to this point in time, being in multiple relationships but ultimately growing within yourself and learning how to evolve?
Hi. Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. And it's definitely some interesting stuff. I think for like one big watershed moment, I don't think so. It's more been like like a number of different moments that kind of build up to where I got right now, I think, and maybe split up in two sides, as in one kind of path led me to kind of abandon my life back home and move abroad and kind of start something new, and then the other part got me into open relationships. So maybe I'll go into that first.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever leads us on the way of a non-traditional
Yeah,
life.
exactly. Well, actually, the way I got into or like I got introduced myself to open relationships was through a former partner. Well, and it of course ties in with me moving to Canada, because I'd made all the plans to leave, and I still had a couple, I think like 8 months left before I was gonna leave the country and move abroad. And then of course I meet a girl, and we connected really well. But right off the bat, she told me actually, like, I don't want to do exclusivity, and I think mainly intimate stuff, let's say, and which kind of came as a little shock to me at first. You're like, okay, that's like it's out of the ordinary, right? You don't really expect it. You're kind of, it's kind of new to you. But maybe partly because of the position I was in, knowing that it was kind of, there was no big long term idea with this girl, but we still had a great time, and we really liked each other. I was like, yeah, let's try it. Let's dive into it and see how it feels.
You had an instant connection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a really good connection. So, and there was a lot of trust there as well. So she also told me, like, if you don't feel comfortable, we'll like, figure it out another way. So it felt like a very safe environment, which is, I hope, or I think, a good way. And I hope people get introduced to it like that, in a good way. And so, yeah, we had a lot of conversations about it. And I think right away, that's where I found the biggest appeal for me in engaging in open relationships, is that it opens up this whole conversation, and you learn to check in with yourself. What do you expect from a relationship? What do you want in a relationship? What do you look for actively in other people? Or what do you think you maybe should kind of like give yourself in a relationship? All those different questions come together when you start talking about this very openly. Whereas, at least in my own experience, in more traditional relationships, there's kind of this unspoken rule that from the time you have the talk, that you're like in a relationship and you're exclusive, and this is like your one person, and there's a lot of there's a lot of things that like go without saying, let's say. And for me, being a curious person and wanting to have everything out in the open, I think it was really appealing to go through it all with this person, and like talk about the different boundaries you would set and the different like expectations you have, and all that sort of stuff. So that's how I got introduced to open relationships. And then of course, as life kind of like moves on, and I move away, and you try to keep that in touch, but it's hard. And then so eventually we kind of ended things. But now, being here in Canada, not that I specifically went looking for it as an open relationship setting to meet someone, but actually pretty soon it happened, and I got talking with someone that was like, we were both interested in each other, and we were talking about open relationships, and they were very much like, okay, I want to try this actually. So if you like to go on a date with me in this kind of setting. And from there on, I met a couple of other people, and yeah, that's also something maybe towards the little audio fragment we heard. It's very much, it feels kind of like a hidden society, you know, where whenever you meet more and more people, there seems to be a lot more people in on it, let's say, than you would expect.
I find once you set your boundaries for something, whether this is anything in life, like what you will and won't accept in a workplace, from a relationship, from a friendship, from your family even, it opens you up to what you are accepting of and what you will entertain in your life. And those little bits just fall away slowly but surely, and you find your people in each of those areas.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's the same.
Yeah, I think so. It's a kind of, you put out there what you kind of look for, what you like, and you'll encounter that maybe more throughout time. So yeah, I think I've had like it was a great time meeting a lot of different people, and also the more people you meet, either on more of a friendship kind of basis or more as a romantic interest, people that have more experience with the whole non-monogamy concept, it's very interesting to learn about their experiences and see what they've been through and how they've been introduced to it. Because for some people, it was not as, like, let's say, positive as it was for me, and it's more of a, you were in a long-term relationship and people cheat on each other, which is of course also a very big thing, and then you kind of try to work through it by figuring some kind of non-monogamy out for you guys.
And I think that's where that stigma comes from, that people have been in these traditional relationships for years on end, and the marriages, and then one of the people in the relationship cheats, and then it's like, okay, well, this is like the counter offer, like, let's explore the open relationships. Whereas if you're quite upfront about it from the very beginning, and you've established what you will and won't accept and what your boundaries are, it's an open, honest relationship from the start. How would you respond to people that have that stigma around it, that you are just cheating, that you're in multiple relationships, and really ultimately you're hurting some people out of this experience?
Yeah, that's of course like a popular belief, I think, around the whole idea. Well, to those people, I mean, they've clearly never had those kind of conversations, I think. And all I can say with my hand on my heart is that everyone I'm like dating or have been dating that were in this kind of setting were aware of how it is. And that doesn't mean that everybody's like very happy about it, like running around and telling everybody about it. It can be very vulnerable, and it can be hard when you're seeing someone and you meet someone else, and there's kind of like a shift in the dynamic a little bit. So there's definitely there's a lot of communication, of course, right? It's a relationship, and you have to be sure that you're respectful towards all the people involved. But at the end of the day, everyone knows that that's what's going on, and like, I guess, like anything in life, if you proceed with it, you choose to
it's your choice.
Yeah, you follow the positive points rather than the disadvantages or the negative points that are there. So that would be, I think, my main response to it. And for me personally, it's very much like a learning opportunity. I like to kind of like experiment and self-experiment and do things I've never done before. And I'm not sure if the whole non-monogamous idea will be a lifelong thing for me, but it's a very big opportunity I find, and I experience, to learn more about myself, to learn more about relationships, about what I want in relationships. Also to kind of broaden your idea of how you see a relationship, instead of be getting stuck in that normative, I want the one, and I want to find them and build a life with them. You kind of take the pressure off of it, and you're like, I want to connect with people that I have an interesting connection with. And you don't have to, like what you said, I think, in the beginning, you don't have to find that one person that fits, that on which you match on every little topic and every little part of life. It's a lot more, kind of relaxed in that sense, where you can connect with different people. And if there's someone who will be more interesting for a longer term relationship kind of thing, then it might evolve into more of a monogamous thing, or maybe more of an open relationship compared to poly. Because it's also something, whenever you start talking to friends, you kind of want to get into semantics and kind of clear out the different settings that there are, or because there's a bunch of books and podcasts and all that on the topic.
And
so
there's like an umbrella, and then there's little, branches off that.
And the first thing people are like thinking is more like, oh, so you just sleep around because you want to have sex with different people, and that's like all fun, and then you'll call it ethical non-monogamous, and then it sounds all good, so everything is fine. Sure, that happens probably, but that's not necessarily what I'm after. What most people are after, I think.
No.
I think not. Yeah.
And I think ultimately, we as society, as humans, we all want to connect with other people and connect with like-minded people on various topics in like life, everything. Were you always brought up traditionally, or
kind of. I think so. I think like my upbringing was, let's say, traditional, but I do feel that my parents were at least open to the idea of you doing your own path, and we're not very forceful on like, oh yeah, you want to go sing and do ballet. No, you have to do this or that, or you have to go study this or that. Or I felt like we were very open, like me and my siblings were very, like open. Or there was a certain trust from my parents. Like, if you want to go and explore this, go and do it, but like make sure you do it in a good way. You make your homework, and you see that you get everything together to start this adventure, whatever you want to do. So I think, well, maybe that contributed probably a little bit to it.
It definitely does. I think when you're indoctrinated into life with a certain set of values that stem from our childhood and our parents and who we go to school with and the friends that they surround themselves with, we get brought up with these values that we think is what we want in life. And it's when we start getting into these marriages and relationships for tens of years on end and then work out that we're unhappy and we have the midlife crisis kind of thing, instead of just being open and honest from the beginning and saying, no, this is what I will and won't accept, and this is what I want to explore. And it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's very much about going through those, like you said, the midlife crisis or any crisis. To what extent, if there's gonna be a crisis, I'll rather tackle it head on and early on, instead of letting it simmer and like pushing it away or whatever. That's also something, like when I was talking to friends about a past relationship I had a couple, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and we ended up after maybe a year or two to go to couples therapy and try to figure it out. They were like, oh, but you're in your 20s. Couples therapies is for married people that don't see it anymore. Blah, blah.
So funny.
I'm like, no, like, if we're gonna have to go through it, I want to learn how to communicate. I want to learn what I want in a relationship. I want to learn what they want in a relationship. If you're expecting the same thing, if you want the same thing out of life or out of relationships, I'd rather figure it out early on, let's say.
Absolutely.
instead of keeping turning a blind eye to it and just having fun until the fun stops, and then you're in bigger, in a more difficult situation, I think.
It's quite funny you say that, because I asked, before I got a divorce, I asked a good friend of mine who had been through couples counseling. She had still does, teenage kids, and she tried for years to work things out with her husband before finally, getting a divorce and going through that. And I said, what do you recommend? Like, none of my friends my age are in this position. I don't have kids, and I've been with this person for a third of my life. And she's like, well, ultimately, do you still love them? Are you in love with them? And I sat there with it for a good couple of days, and I said, you know what? I'm not in love with them anymore. I love them enough as a person that I still want to be friends eventually, that I still have enough love and respect to be honest with that person. First and foremost myself, but being honest with them as well, that I don't see a future for it. I don't see that we're growing anymore. And no amount of counseling is going to fix that connection. So ultimately, I had to go through that. Whereas I find people now, they're a lot more evolved and open to new things, that they're trying it out before they get into something that they know that they don't eventually want.
Yeah, I can relate to that, I think. And I think it's a very good thing, like once you know what you want, you go on with it. And then if you don't know, it's also there, or it's also the point that you admit to yourself that you don't know how you feel, that you don't know how to work it out, and then it's perfectly fine to go and ask for help, like you went to your friend maybe, or like people going to counseling. But I think it's also very brave, like you said, to be, and it definitely is a matter of respect as well towards the other person, to be open about how you feel, which is also something you encounter if you're, of course, dating different people at the same time, or multiple people at the same time. It's not an easy thing. There's a lot of communication, or there has to be a lot of communication, to check in with each other and to see if everyone is, or like if people are still feeling the way they feel and are okay with whatever is happening, because things kind of change and shift. And
do you find yourself doing that often since you've been over here in Canada? Like how many years have you been out of Belgium for?
So yeah, that's maybe towards the other, like, little trickle of watershed moments. I've been in Canada now for let's say the better part of half a year, maybe 3/4 of a year,
Yeah.
some kind. So not that long. But of course, when you decide to kind of like put your life on hold or kind of like conclude this chapter, let's say, of your life, you started back home. I was working for a couple of years, and I kind of realized that I wasn't getting the joy out of life that I wanted to have.
Doing that 9 to
I
5.
think doing that 9 to
Yeah.
5, realizing like, okay, why am I doing this? I might be saving to buy a house someday, but is that necessarily what I want to do? And at any point in time, anyway. So that of course took a longer process of trying to also like trying to tap in with myself and trying to figure out what I want for me, which is always very hard for me, I think. But at one point, you're also
It's hard for everyone.
okay. Yeah, thanks. I think you kind of have to jump at one point, and I remember when because I like went through the whole process of applying for a visa, da 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 da. Quit my job, kind of prepare everything, and then I took a month or two off between quitting my job and let's say settling in Canada, in which I did a long distance hike throughout the US. And when I was arriving to the US, like you get off the plane with your little backpack and you're like, okay. And then when you're hiking throughout the US and then you walk across the border, whatever, you arrive in Canada, and again you're like, okay, now I have to start this thing. I often thought back to my like past self, let's say, who was between his hours at work researching stuff and like trying to prepare everything, and I was kind of like thankful and amazed at how my past self had that much confidence that my future self would figure it out. All my past self had to do was arrange everything to put my future self at that position, and then he'll figure it out from there. He'll take it from there, which is something I've been pretty proud of, I think, or pretty happy with how it all went. And now as we speak, I'm kind of trying to apply for permanent residency. So I've made the decision to stay at least longer, because 1 year is always too short, right? So at least longer than 1 year, and we'll see what happens. But so to stay a little bit longer in Canada, because it's just absolutely beautiful over here. So
Yes.
why not?
Well, we might wrap it up there, Louis, but I do want to chat with you more about your trek in the US and how that sort of eventuated, and what light bulb moment you got at work that you're just like, nah, enough is enough, and need to do some things differently in my life and figure out what I want.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to talk about hiking as well.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you.
When it comes to what sort of relationships we're allowed to have, our societies present us with a menu with only a single option on it: the monogamous, cohabiting, romantic relationship, usually served up with a side order of children. To be considered remotely normal, we are meant to develop overwhelming emotional and sexual feelings for one very special person, who will then become a combination of our best friend, sole sexual partner, co-parent, business associate, therapist, travel companion, property co-manager, kindergarten teacher, and soulmate, and with whom we will live exclusively in one house, in one bed, for many decades, in substantial harmony and with an active tolerance for each other's foibles and an ongoing desire for their evolving appearance, till death do us part. But what is striking for an arrangement supposed to be entirely normal is just how many people cannot abide by its rules. At least half flunk completely, and a substantial portion muddle along in quiet desperation. At best, only around 15% of the population ever admit to being totally satisfied, a thought-inducingly low figure for a menu option vigorously claiming universal validity.
Thank you for choosing to set your own compass this evening on a different heading. There is a beautiful realization here, and I'm reminded of the thought that to give you a reality, your mind looks for something to compare it to, and if it can't, it gets confused. I've actually been the biggest believer for a number of years now that we need a collective connection of people throughout our lives to ultimately satiate us on every possible level: romantic relationships, a workplace, friends and family, and that what will be my normal is based on my own living existence and the opportunities and decisions that I choose to explore. It's the ability for us to sit with ourselves in this present moment and be totally honest and open with ourselves about what we truly need to grow, first and foremost within ourselves, and then to be able to share that experience with others. Next up, diving in deeper to discuss mindsets and the vital role it plays in the world of diving and sports. I have the honour of chatting to a freediving instructor who will journey into the great blue with us and hone in a little further on ways in which to free your mind.